Welcome everybody to March of the Lich King. No, it's not a mini set. It's not a mini set. It's a set review. Welcome to the set review. Oh god. Thought I was ready. Oops. Okay, that'll be good enough. Welcome everybody to the March of the Lich King set review. We'll also be covering Path of Arthas, since that's the new core set for the Death Knight cards. We'll be checking out all these new class cards as well, but we're starting in the neutral terrain. Let me get that 5 off the board. I have not looked at most of these new cards yet, so they'll all be pretty fresh takes from me. Let's just jump into it. Bone Flinger, 2 mana, 2/3, common undead. Interesting. So no 1 mana neutral cards. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 2 damage. If a friendly undead died, starting to sound like a Dr. Seuss. If a friendly undead died after your last turn. After your last turn? So, during the opponent's turn or during your turn just now, I guess. That's fine. It's 2 mana, 2/3. It's solid. We go on a 0 to 5 score ranking system, as you see above my dome. So that means 2.5 is average. A 2 mana 2/3 that doesn't do anything else would be below average these days. Does this ability do enough to knock it up to average, I guess is my question. And it really depends on how common these undead cards are going to be. I'm going to rate this a 2 for now, I think. If you hit the ability with some consistency, it's probably like a 2.5. But as it stands, the unlikely synergy. I'm just gonna have to click on each of them. Why are these not in order of mana? If I do this, why are they all jumbly? What are they in order of? They're in alphabetical order. They're not in alphabetical order. I'm so confused. I hate this website. Sort by... Here we go. Low to high. There we go. All better. So there are 1-cost neutrals, including Arms Dealer. 1 mana, 1/2, common undead. After you summon an undead, give it +1 attack. This is kind of a nothing card. 1 mana, 1/2, very low impact stat line. If you have other undead, you could buff them a little bit, but wouldn't you rather just have like a, I don't know, a raid leader that does that naturally without having to worry about the tag? I think this is not a great card. I would even go so far as to rate it a 1. After you summon an undead, give it +1 attack. Does it buff itself? My assumption is no, but I don't know that for sure. If it buffs itself, it's a different story. Oh my god. Okay. Banshee, 1 mana, 2/1, undead, rare. Death Rattle, give a random friendly undead +2/+1. It's sort of the same. It's the same thing as the last one. Like, if we're talking about current arena dual class meta, it's a 1 mana, 2/1. You can play that. But in the modern day arena, you don't want to draft this at all. And again, if you have a very undead heavy deck, you could maybe bump it up to a 1.5, but it's not a huge boost because you still have to have undead stuff on the board when this dies. It's just too difficult to pull off. Foul Egg. 1 mana, 0/2 undead common card. Death Rattle, summon a 3/3 undead chicken. Rather summon a denim chicken. This is even worse than 1. This is like nothing. This is 0.5, right? 1 mana for a 3/3 chicken. I mean, that would be strong, but you have to crack the egg, which probably happens at some point, but I don't know if you want to draft this. Better than the Rubian egg. You could argue for this being 1, but I don't really like it on its own. A legendary, Astalor Bloodsworn, 2 mana, 2/2, Battlecry, add Astalor the Protector to your hand. Mana Thirst 4, deal 2 damage. Okay, so this is our first Mana Thirst card. A bonus if you have X mana crystals. Now, maybe somebody could clear this up for me real quick. I assume, let's say that I have 6 mana crystals, and I spend 4 of them on a Silvermoon Guardian, and then I play this. Will I get the Mana Thirst? My assumption is yes, you just need the empty crystals, right? Yes, okay. All right, so I guess let's look at what this is. Is that... Oh. Astalor the Protector, add Astalor the Flamebringer to your hand. Mana Thirst 7, gain 5 armor. Well, that's a 5 mana 5/5. That's not particularly good, but let's see what the Flamebringer does. Deal 8 damage, randomly split between all enemies. 8 mana, 8 damage randomly split between all enemies is good, but it's not incredible. And I think you would want the 3rd card at the end of this sequence to be incredible because you're taking some downside playing these other 2. So ultimately, I don't know, it's amazing legendary. Now, when you take into account this Mana Thirst, deal 8 more, all of a sudden you're sending 16 damage. That's probably game winning. Probably game winning. But it takes so much time and effort to set it up. To be fair, the 2 damage from this Mana Thirst and the armor from this one does help you survive a little bit while you're doing that. Better Pyros. Yeah, Pyros is not really good by today's standards. I will call this an average legendary, and maybe it cleans up. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'll call it average for now. Bone Flinger. We talked about this. Coroner. 2 mana, 2/2 rare. Battlecry, freeze an enemy minion. Mana Thirst 6, silence it first. Oh, interesting. I am a big fan of the freeze mechanic. You can think about how good a Glacial Shard is as a 1 mana 2/1. The stat line on this is worse, but it does have the additional Mana Thirst of being able to silence things. Imagine the opponent plays like a big taunt, like a Scrapyard Colossus in the late game or something like that. You just play Coroner, and not only have you played a way to get through that taunt, but you have killed a whole 7/7 body, and you've frozen the remaining 7/7 body. It just does a whole lot of work. I like this card. Do I think it's all the way up to a 4? It is still just a 2 mana 2/2. I'm gonna call this a 4, and I might be overrating it, but you have to forgive me because freeze and silence are 2 of my favorite mechanics. So my keys stick sometimes, so I overshoot. Okay, Incorporeal Corporal. After this minion attacks, destroy it. 2 mana 5/5 common undead. So you could almost consider this to be like a Jungle Panther in some ways. It's as if a stealth minion that dies on its first hit. So you could play this and just let it sit there until you feel the need to attack with it. Like if you play this on turn 2, you're probably not attacking the next turn. You're probably waiting a couple turns. Now, the downside is that it's then susceptible to any removal that they might have. The upside is, I don't know, you could taunt it or something. I have no idea what to rate this. I think it's pretty good. Like, you're basically saying when you play this card, I will answer any curve piece you send to me. Almost like a quasi doomsayer. The 1 mana for 1 dormant bird. Yeah, the Pelican Diver is an interesting comparison point, and I thought that card was really strong. You think this is a 4? I can get behind that. You're just saying I'm going to cancel out some early game stuff that you do. Maybe I would call it a 3.5, but we don't need to quibble. Infected Peasant, 2 mana, 2/1 common card. Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 undead peasant. Do I like this? I tend to like any of the cards that are like tiny cards with a Death Rattle that summons another body. I tend to like those. I think this one's okay. It seems a little sad compared to the Hog Seed that comes with initiative. And it's got an undead card in it. So that juices some synergies. For this, I think, call it a fairly average 2.5. A 2/1 and then a 2/2 body. They're not amazing. Well, honestly, for 2 mana, though, for 2 mana to probably connect with 4 damage of attack power over time. Yeah, maybe it's actually a 3. I like how it's staggered. And the downside of playing a card with 1 health is that it can get pinged, but if you play this, it disincentivizes the ping because then they have to deal with another body. Umbral Geist, 2 mana, 3/1 common undead. Death Rattle, add a random shadow spell to your hand. Random shadow spell. So 2 mana, 3/1. Don't like that stat line. The spell might be enough to make it worth it, though. This is an interesting card, actually. Just play it on curve. It gets spanked, and then you have potential upside with shadow spell. I think I would call this 2.5 or 3. It really depends on what shadow spells are in. Some of them might be pretty bad. So until we know, I guess we do know, but until I find out more about that, then I'm not sure how much to rate this. Right, cool. Necrolite, 2 mana, 2/2 common undead. I could take my headphones off. I'm not listening to anything. Give a friendly minion. Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 zombie with Rush. So the main downside of this card is going to be that you can't play it. You don't want to play it unless you have a minion on board already, which kind of nullifies its efficacy as a 2-drop, right? Like, this card seems good, but you have to consider... Like, you're not going to be guaranteed... This has to be nuts? I don't know. Well, does it? It's a 2-drop that you're not playing on 2. It's like Argent Protector. It's like Argent Protector? But Argent Protector... That's the one that gives Divine Shield, right? It's like that in that it has a similar downside, is true. But Argent Protector is so much stronger because you can get a free hit for anywhere between 1 and infinity damage, right? This is just a 2/2 zombie. Like, if this battle cry was summon a 2/2 zombie with Rush, it would be a better version of the Hog Rancher, right? But I personally, maybe a more control-oriented player would really love this card, but I feel weird about having a 2-mana 2/2 that I'm not wanting to play on 2. It's a 2-mana 4/4. This on curve is bonkers. Yeah, but you're almost never gonna get it. If you get it on curve, it's amazing, but you're almost never gonna. You would have to stick a 1-drop and have it survive and have this in hand to play. 4. Any aggro deck loves it. Yes, but aggro is not a very common and viable archetype right now. If you're like a mid-range deck, I think this is a good pick, but it's not. I'm feeling like it's not as amazing as some other people think. I will go 3.5 with it. There's some flexibility. Like you can stick the death rattle on something and just leave it there. You can stick the death rattle on something and then trade in and then hit with an additional 2 damage. There's some flexibility there, but I don't love non-curve cards. Amber Whelp. Look at that art. Wow. 3 mana 3/3 common dragon. Battle cry if you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage. I like the art, but it's kind of a dull card. If this had tradable, it would be a 5. I'm not in love with it. I'm not in love with it. So this is just mid, right? This is just like 2 at best. Honestly, it's a 1.5, right? You don't want to play a 3 mana 3/3 in this day and age, and you also don't want to count on having dragons in hand. It's not that much of an upside. It's just a SI7 agent, but way worse. So, blah. Bloodied Knight. 3 mana 4/5 common. At the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to your hero. You know, I am a fan of this, actually. I like this. This is good for aggressive players. Because unlike that 2 mana 2/2 card, you play this on curve and it's very strong. And you're also not like... You're not really missing that 2 damage. If you can jump out so far ahead in the early game, here's what's going to happen. Either you play this card and they're going to remove it right away, thus nullifying the downside. Or you're going to play this card. It's going to stick around because you have gotten control of the board. And then you're going to have control of the game going into the middle game and hopefully going into the late game. And you're not caring that much about having lost damage. I like this card. You could draw it late and be sad because you can't play it because your health is low sometimes. That will happen, but the great impact of this is on curve, and it should be evaluated as such, I think. 3 mana 4/5. I don't know if we've seen a straight up stat line like that without some other important qualifier. I think I will call this a 4. The upside is high, yeah. And I don't think the downside is particularly low. The Mage Dormant. Having to wait 2 turns for it is an enormous downside, though. This just comes out right away, swinging. And then the downside of having to wait 2 turns is balanced in that card by the upside of dealing damage, right? Bibliomite. That's true. But, like, discarding a card is so much worse than taking some face damage, right? Brittleskin Zombie, 3 mana 4/3 common undead. Death Rattle. If it's your opponent's turn, deal 3 damage to them. So this is like a classic. This is like a Leopard Gnome. It's a classic archetype. When this dies, deal some face damage. I think it's a 2. It's not great. 3 mana 4/3 is the least acceptable stat line for a 3-drop, which these days is going to be below average. And I don't think the 3 damage face is going to make up for that stat line. So I'll call it 2. Skelemancer. Yeah. Alright, Crystal Broker. 3 mana, 3/2 epic card. Mana Thirst 5, summon a random 3-cost minion. Mana Thirst 10, summon an 8-cost minion instead. So this is an interesting one. It's another one of those curve cards that you don't play on curve. You pretty much can't play this until turn 5, at which point you're getting a 3/2 body and a 3-cost minion for 3 mana, and you have 2 mana left over to do other things like hero power or something. And a random 8 cost at Mana Thirst 10. Like, what I like about this is that it scales super well throughout the game. It's going to be hard to think about this deck when you're building around it. Sorry, think about this card when you're building a deck around it, because it's going to show up on your curve as a 3, but really it's more of a 5. But it's not exactly a 5 because you could play other things with it. This is going to be hard to fit it into your mental schema. A bit like Dinner Performer, but you know what you get. It seems better than Dinner Performer, and that's a pretty good card. It's gonna hurt when you have to tempo it. QBGH on curve conversation again. If you're getting into the late game, you're spending 3 mana for a 3/2 body and a random 8-cost minion. Even if you really whiff the 8-cost minion and summon like a 4/4, it's still strong for 3 mana. I think I'm gonna say 4.5 on this. I think this is gonna be a dominant card. Luckily, it's epic, so we won't be seeing it all the time. It's gonna be Crystal Broken. Drakaria Embalmer. 3 mana, 3/4 common undead. Battlecry, give a friendly undead reborn. Okay, so unlike those earlier undead cards, where it was like, this is a 1 mana 1/2, but it can give attack to your other undead. Unlike those cards, this doesn't have downside in the stat line. It's a 3 mana 3/4, which is solid. Except for the 2 months of epic bug. The only epic bug I want to see is a praying mantis. So, given that this has no downside and the upside is like pretty decent, I could call this a 3. Like a low 3. You're gonna get some games where Reborn makes all the difference, I think. Call it a 3. Enchanter, 3 mana, 3/3 epic. Enemy minions take double damage during your turn. Enemy minions take double damage during your turn. How interesting. Now this is an interesting design. Sure, Velstorm, I'll try to get it uploaded hopefully by the end of the day, since the set is coming up pretty soon. This essentially has 6 attack. I think this is quite strong. A lot of death rattles, so Reborn's better than normal. In this case, it would have to be specifically Undead Reborn, but it makes sense that there's a lot of death rattles around in like a necromancy type expansion. Anyway, this card I think is really good. Enemy minions take double damage during your turn. So like you could have a 5/5 and they could play basically anything and then you could kill it. You can kill 2 health things with pings. It is a combo card, and combo cards in Arena typically are rated a little lower, but the difference is that this is an extremely flexible combo card. It's not like you need an undead minion to activate it. It's like you just need anything that deals damage, pretty much. It's a hell of a win more card. But it's also a hell of a comeback card, right? Like, you play this in Flame Strike, you've dealt 10 damage to their entire board, right? this attacks a minion and dies, does it deal 6? I would guess yes. I'm gonna call this a conservative 4 for now, but it could be a 4.5. Hawkstrider Rancher, 3 mana, 2/5 epic. After you play a minion, give it +1/+1 and Death Rattle summon a 1/1 Hawkstrider. It's just a 1/1. So this is kind of like the inverse of the card that gives everything the plant Death Rattle. The 4 mana 3/3, which this is way better statted than a 4 mana 3/3. Difference is that you want cards played after this rather than before. Injured Blade Masters. A funny observation. 3 mana 2/5 isn't so hot, but you're also summoning a ping. Hopefully you get at least one off. Yeah, a bit slow, but good with 1 or 2 minions. I think we could call this average on balance. The stat line isn't amazing, but it gets some stuff done. Nerubian Vizier, 3 mana 2/4, common undead. Battlecry, discover a spell. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, it costs 2 less. Okay, so this is an undead combo card. The combo in question isn't necessary to make it work well. The 2 mana discount would be nice. You don't need it. You're just discovering a spell, which is typically pretty great. So I would call this like a 3.5, honestly. It's not so understated that maybe that's a little bit high because 3 mana 2/4 isn't great, but I think it's worth it to discover a spell. Scourge Rager, 3 mana 5/4. Reborn, Battlecry, die. Okay, so basically this is a 3 mana 5/1 rush. What would be the application otherwise? For like reviving things, it would be amazing. Like if it dies and then later on you revive something. Oh, it doesn't have rush. Why did I think it had rush? Then what the hell is the point of this card? I guess I just interpolated rush into it because I figured it had to do something. So this is a 3 mana 5/1. Well, that makes it a little bit easier for me now, doesn't it? I have to talk about. Come on, keys. My keys are sticking. Okay, Silvermoon Arcanist. Spell damage +2. Battlecry, your spells can't target heroes this turn. My question is, why is this card so bad? Why does this exist? Your spells can't target heroes this turn. I'm confused. That's a downside, right? Like, why would you not want that? Why would you not want to be able to target heroes? It's a 3 mana 2/2. Why does it have downside? Is spell damage +2 that good? It seems awful to me. I'm gonna give it another 0.5. Silvermoon Sentinel, 3 mana 2/5 common taunt, mana thirst 8, gain +2/+2 in Divine Shield. So let's think first. 3 mana 2/5 taunt. It's not bad. It's not bad at all, actually. 5 points of health for taunt for 3 mana. Consider that Fen Creeper is a 3/6, and that's 5 mana. Not that you want to be playing Fen Creeper, but... And like the 4 mana 2/6 taunt was pretty good. It did have a little bit of upside otherwise, but... Now, if you have 8 mana for Mana Thirst, this becomes a 4/7 taunt Divine Shield for 3 mana. This is really strong. It's at least going to be a 4, I think. 4/7 taunt Divine Shield. That's good. For 3 mana. It's a better Sunwalker. Yeah, it is going to be painful to play against. Sun Fury Clergy, 3 mana 2/4 common. Battlecry, restore 3 health to all friendly characters. Mana Thirst 6, restore 6 health instead. This I don't really care about. 3 health to all friendly characters is fine. This is draftable. You can draft this. And you can have some board states where you're ahead. You make like 3 value trades and you play this and everything's healthy again and you're feeling great about it. But that's not going to be the norm. I would call this a 1, maybe a 1.5. I think healing is one of those things that I do underestimate occasionally. Plague Spreader. 4 mana 4/4 epic undead. Death Rattle. Transform a random minion in your opponent's hand into a Plague Spreader. Oh. So this is kind of like the... What's it called? The 1 mana 1/2 that... The Spoiling. It's kind of like Infectious Spoiling, but for the hand. You mess up their curve a little bit, but you're giving them a 4 mana 4/4 that they can then play. Hand Disruption, kind of niche. Yeah, I think this is a cool card and a fun card and an interesting card. Is it a good card? I don't know if it's a good card. It's a 4 mana 4/4. We'll call it... Honestly, I think it's probably a 2 if you're talking impact and quality. But I'll draft it sometimes, sure. Sanctum Spellbender. Love the colors on this. All the cards look so... Well, this is a nice colors on this one, actually. Yeah, but these are kind of gloomy. So just click with my damn mouse. Sanctum Spellbender, 4 mana 3/6 epic. Whenever your opponent targets another minion with a spell, redirect it to this. So this is explicit Spellbender attached to a minion. You know what I mean by that? It's like a Spellbender that you're letting the opponent know about. Four mana 3/6. I love that stat line. I'm a big fan of it. You can use this to nullify the possibility of opponent's buffs. You could also use this to protect one of your better, stronger, high priority cards. Like if you have a good body on the board, you can play this so that any hard removal is going to be sucked up by it, right? So you could simultaneously be using it for multiple purposes without even knowing what you're doing. You just be like, I'll play a 4 mana 3/6, but then it's got upsides, and I don't really see much downsides for it. I really like this card. I would call this a 4. It's not doing anything active enough to bump it up higher than a 4, but I think it's a great stat line and very useful tech for things that you don't know that you're teching against, you know? Silvermoon Armorer, 4 mana 4/4 common rush, mana thirst 7, gain +2/+2. 4 mana 4/4 rush, mid. 4 mana 6/6 rush, lit. You Potion of Madness a 2-drop, you instead steal this. Would that work? I have no idea, actually. That's a funny one. Yeah, it's pretty mid as far as these Mana Thirst cards go. 4 mana 6/6 is nice. With Rush. I think I could call this comfortably like a 3. Maybe is good enough to be a 3.5. Street Sweeper, 4 mana 2/2 common, Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all of the minions. So this is a sheep. This is like sheep broomstick combined. So you're kind of doing a consecration, and this is a battle cry. It's not a death rattle, so you can play this as a consec, and you would have an extra 2/2, or you can play it as a consec and also kill an opponent's 4 health minion. I think this is nice. I think this is like neutral AOE. I hate that they have this. Making something like a common AOE available to all classes. It's all minions. Yeah, so that is a big difference from Consec. You're right. That it's symmetrical. It's a symmetrical board clear, so your stuff's gonna get hurt too. But you could consider it like a different kind of Hellfire that will work out better sometimes. This is literally AOE on a stick. I'm gonna call it a 3.5. I think it's gonna be a very useful tool. The sweeper hit. Infectious Ghoul, 5 mana, 5/4 rare undead. Death Rattle, give a random friendly minion Death Rattle, summon an Infectious Ghoul. Death Rattle, give a random friendly minion Death Rattle, summon an Infectious Ghoul. And so bear in mind, first of all, how even when you go all the way back to OG Arena, the Anubiseth, the 5 mana 4/4 Death Rattle, give a minion +3/+3 is not very good. So just remember, like bear in mind and remember how difficult it is to get this sort of card running. And once you've borne that in mind, this can definitely ruin your opponent's day. So it's one of those cards that's going to win some games, and other games it's going to be a kind of a non-factor. Worst Greybow, yeah. Because it doesn't have the taunt, right? It does have Undead tag. I'm going to hedge my bets here and call this 3.5, saying like this could be really, really strong, but it's going to be inconsistent. 5 mana, 4/6 rare, Tenacious Sandlane, Lifesteal. Whenever this attacks, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Undead tag. So it's healing you up and hurting the opponent's face. It's a really non-impactful stat line. But if you're trying to put some aggression on, I don't know. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife. It's got multiple purposes. 2016 card. I think I'm not that impressed. Honestly, I would call it like a high 2. I think it's right at the cusp of average. Maybe even it should be a 2.5 because of the lifesteal. Pardon. Translocation Instructor. 5 mana, 4/4 rare. Battlecry. Choose an enemy minion. Swap it with a random one in their deck. Choose an enemy minion. Swap it with a random one in their deck. I think that more often than not, this is gonna be a really strong card, right? You're getting 4/4 for 5 mana, which is a decent sized body. You're removing something. You know, think about Entomb. Entomb is like 6 mana to just kind of take something away. You're doing that for 5 mana this time. They're getting a replacement minion, and you're getting a 4/4. I would say on average, when you're pulling stuff out of the opponent's deck, it's probably going to be worse than a 4/4. Since it's going to be a lot of like 1s, 2s, 3s. Let's call it a 3.5. Your opponent gets it, not you. Yeah, but you know, I've been playing with what's the card called? The 3 mana 2/8 Death Rattle? Underlord or whatever the hell that card is. I've been ripping people up with that all meta. And I have very rarely gotten punished by a random card from the opponent's deck. So I actually don't think this downside is like you're gonna lose the game on it sometimes, but you're probably using this card on a minion that's already threatening to beat you. So like I don't even think it's high rolly. It's just you have to not low roll it, which is very different than having to high roll it. I was even thinking about giving this a 4, but I'll stick with 3.5. I'm not as scared of pulling a random thing from the opponent's deck as I used to be. Bone Lord Frost Whisper, that's what they called me in high school. 6 mana, 6/6 legendary undead. Death Rattle for the rest of the game. Your first card each turn costs 0. You die in 3 turns. Right, I was looking at this card. It's more of a constructed than an arena card, right? First card costing 0 is cool, but like if you don't have hand refill, you're just gonna run out of stuff and then die. 6 mana 6/6 is not gonna swing the game one way or the other by itself. Obvia 5? Yeah, I think so, ours. I'm not looking very kindly on this one. Not looking too kindly upon it. I'll call it a 1.5 just to leave room for the possibility that you might... I might even call it less than that. I don't think this is going to be that playable. Shatterskin Gargoyle, 6 mana, 4/6 common undead. Taunt. Death Rattle, deal 4 damage to a random enemy. Okay, so I was actually watching, I don't know, maybe Dread's review, and he was covering this card, and people didn't like it that much. It is 6 mana, 4/6. Not a great stat line. And it does say deal 4 damage to a random enemy, meaning it could go face. But I think that this might be an okay card to just throw up in maybe an interim period where you're not making an active play. Maybe you're trying to stall, kill time, weaken their board for an AoE, something like that. I think these interim cards, because they have taunt, they have to be dealt with. Sometimes they have to be dealt with in a way that forces the opponent to take risks. You put the opponent in enough situations where they're taking risks, eventually they're going to regret it. So at the end of the day, I'll call it a 2.5. I think some people were feeling like this is a below average card, but I don't mind it. Lorthamar Theron, 7 mana, 7/7 legendary, doubles the stats of all minions in your deck. Yeah, and I was watching some spirited discussion about this as well. Because it is slow. You're playing a War Golem and then hoping that it will win you the game in a few turns. I think we could call it a 4.5. It's not a 5 to me. Could be a 4. We'll call it a 4.5 because if you manage to get this down and not die, you're probably gonna win the game over a decent amount of time. 8 mana 5/5 legendary undead beast invincible reborn battlecry and death rattle give a random friendly undead +5/+5 and taunt. It's just unplayable if you don't have undead on the board. I've said the same thing again and again looking at these neutrals, but if you don't have undead on the board, what are you gonna do with an 8 mana 5/5 reborn? If you do have undead on the board, you're just gonna pop off. But yeah, the battle cry doesn't hit itself. I think it's not that good. I think I would call this a 1 even. Like, you can draft an amazing deck for this, but as a standalone card, I don't like it. Flesh Behemoth. Same. 9 mana 4/8 rare undead taunt death rattle. Draw another undead and summon a copy of it. 9 mana 4/8 sucks though. And there's a lot of small undead creatures. So this card is not as bad as this card in terms of like needing the synergy to have it happen, but the upside is way less than this card. That makes sense. So I'm not impressed by this either. I'm gonna call this a 1 too. A lot of the bigger neutral cards are not looking that good. So what's the story on this? This is a neutral card, huh? The Sunwell, legendary, holy. Fill your hand with random spells. Cost 1 less for each other card in your hand. So if you have 5 cards in your hand, this costs 4, and you'll get 5 cards. That's really good, though. I think it's good refill. But it doesn't do anything but refill. It's random spells. Let's say 3 for now. The problem is it's a legendary. What, this card? I'm glad it's a legendary. I wouldn't want to be seeing this all the damn time. Okay, so like a lot of undead cards. Let's count them up actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. There's 19 neutral undead cards coming out, which is a ton. So that's good fodder for synergies. I do think, though... What do I think, though? I think a lot of the synergies are pretty niche, so it'll be possible to pull them off, but I think maybe more times than not, it's going to be bait when you're drafting an arena deck. But that's the sort of thing that it's impossible to evaluate until you get into the meta, so we'll leave it at that for now. Let's pop over to Path of Arthas and look at the Death Knight core cards. Get an idea of what's going on with that class. Horn of Winter. So this is a 2 blue. A 2 blue card, 0 mana common frost, refresh 2 mana crystals. Trying to decide between 0 and 0.5. We'll call it 0.5 because maybe once in your life you'll draft it and do something with that. Ugh. Bonebreaker. Okay, 1 mana, 1 frost widget. It's a 2/2 common weapon. After your hero attacks a minion, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Wow, that's good. Yeah, nice aggressive 1-cost weapon. I think that's pretty good. In fact, I would say it's at least a 3.5 here. If it had a little bit of a better ability, it could be a 4. 2 damage to the enemy. It's okay. Icy Touch, 1 mana common frost spell. Deal 2 damage to an enemy and freeze it. So power crept arcane shot. What about the blue, red, etc.? What about it? Are you asking how Death Knight works? I guess I could explain that a little bit. From my understanding, these little tokens are going to be what enables you to run the card or not. So there's 3 different, hang on. There's Frost, which we've been looking at. There's red diamonds, which are blood. It says it right there, blood. And then there's green squares, which is, I don't know, undead or something. And you can have, as I understand it, you can have one of each. You can have 3 slots, unholy, okay? You can have 3 slots to put these in. So you could do all 3 frost, and if you do all 3 frost, then you can run this card, for example, because it's 3 ticks here. Or you could do 1 frost, 1 unholy, and 1 blood, and then you can run a plague strike and a vicious bloodworm and a Emerger, because you only need 1 of these. Or you can run 2 frosts and 1 blood, so you could run Horn of Winter and Darkfallen Neophyte in that deck. The way it works in arena drafts, as I understand it, would be if I get pick 1 offered Horn of Winter, and I click on Horn of Winter. God help me, I don't know why I've clicked on Horn of Winter, but if I did, it means that I'm never going to be offered 2 or 3 blood token cards or 2 or 3 unholy token cards, because it would be impossible for me to pick it. You know what I mean? I like this Icy Touch. I'll call it a 3. 1 mana, deal 2 damage. Great, and the freeze effect is fantastic on top of that. Ymir Frostbaker, 1 mana, 1/2 common with a frost token. Battlecry game, +1 attack for each frost spell in your hand. So far I'm not impressed by the frost cards. I think this is like, honestly, I think this is like a 1. It's a 1-drop with very little upside. Blood tap, 2 mana, rare shadow spell. Blood, 2 blood tokens required. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Spend 3 corpses to give them +1/+1 more. So this is a hand buff card. 2 mana to buff +1/+1. Not that great. As far as the corpses go, when an undead dies, or is it? It says when a friendly minion dies. I guess it doesn't even have to be undead. When a friendly minion dies, you get a corpse. So a little bit later on, after you've had some stuff die, you can give +2/+2 to your hand. I still don't think that's amazing. So I'll call this like a 1.5. I think a lot of things have to come together for you to run over your opponent with this card. Dark Transformation, 2 mana, 1 unholy tick. It's a rare shadow spell. Transform an undead into a 4/5 undead monstrosity with rush. Okay, another kind of a crummy card for arena. Because you need an undead on the board, and it needs to be a bad enough undead that you're happy to transform it. So like 2 mana for a 4/5 rush would be great, but you have so many qualifications to get there. I think it's a 0.5. I hate this card. Oh yeah, I should be thinking about that, shouldn't I? So your hero power summons a 1/1 undead rush, right? So yeah, now that you mention it, so this is another way you could think of this. Then would be a 4 mana 4/5 rush, which is okay. So I'm gonna bump that up to like 1.5. 4 mana 4/5 rush. Maybe even 2 with the consistency from the hero power. Still not in love with it though. Death Chiller. 2 mana, 2 Frost Ticks, 2/3 rare elemental. I have to say so many things on the cards now. Like 2 mana, 2 Frost Tick rare, 2/3 elemental, undead, battle cry, death rattle, taunt. Hey, drink some water. After you cast a spell, deal 1 damage to 2 random enemies. Yeah, this is cool. Just a standard curve card. Pretty solid upside. Some of that damage can go face, which probably not that impactful. We'll call it average. We'll call it a 2.5. 2 mana, 2/3 rare, Hematurge, 2 blood tokens. Battlecry, spend a corpse to discover a blood rune card. Blood rune. They're called runes, I guess. I think spending a corpse is no problem. And you get a class card out of it. I think that's cool. We'll call it a 3. You know, if you're playing it on curve, you might miss the discover, but otherwise it seems good. Plague Strike, 2 mana, common shadow spell with an unholy token, unholy rune. Deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, summon a 2/2 zombie with rush. Okay, so this is flanking strike, right? But like, so much better. It's so much better. Because flanking strike was 4 mana for 3 damage. And you get a 3/3 guaranteed, but it doesn't have rush. This does not guarantee you the summon, but it's a 2/2 with rush. I think this is better flanking strike. I could even call this a 4. I think it's a really strong tempo card. You're spending 2 mana and dealing 5 damage staggered, meaning you can send it to different places. Or you're spending 2 mana to deal 3 damage and have a 2/2 on board. It's nice. Vicious Bloodworm, 2 mana, 3/2 rare beast. Blood rune. 1 blood rune. Battlecry, give a minion in your hand attack equal to this minion's attack. 2 mana, 3/2 acceptable. Battlecry has no qualifications that come along with it. This has a decent attack stat. Now, as far as the phrasing of this, it says give a minion in your hand attack equal to this minion's attack. Does that mean you're adding that to the minion's attack, or you're making it 3? It means you're adding it, right? Like if I have a Tiny Fin in hand and I play this, it's going to have 4 attack, not 3. Give, buffing. Okay, I figured. Yeah, then this is a solid card. You don't really want to play 2 mana 3/2s all the time, but they could be okay, depending on the meta. Let's call it... And giving health would be better than giving attack, strictly speaking, but I still think extra attack's nice. We'll call it a high 2.5. Maybe verging on a 3 there. Asphyxiate, 3 mana common shadow spell, 2 blood runes. Destroy the highest attack enemy minion. Whoa, this is awesome. Yeah, if there's one big minion on the board, it's just a hard removal. And you're oftentimes wanting to kill the highest attack minion anyway, so... So I'll call this a 4. I think it's very strong. Darkfallen Neophyte, 3 mana, 2/5 common undead minion, 1 blood rune. Battlecry, spend 2 corpses to give all minions in your hand +2 attack. Not targeted, so it works on evasive. Yeah, which is nice. And raid boss Onyxia, huh? Having 2 corpses by turn 3 might be a little difficult. If you have to play this off curve a little bit, that's okay. Maybe this is better than I think, but I think I would just call it an average 2.5 here. Nope. Sticky key, sticky key. Okay. Glacial Advance. 3 mana common frost spell, 1 frost rune. Deal 4 damage. Your next spell this turn costs 2 less. 3 mana, deal 4. Not the best in the world, but it can go face. It's burn. It's an acceptable amount of damage to deal for 3 mana. And you got that upside of next spell costing 2 less, which is not the hardest thing to take advantage of. I still think this is not that much better than average. We'll call it average. Howling Blast, 3 mana common frost, 1 frost rune. This is a must draft? It's just 3 mana deal 4. Am I missing something? Maybe the discount is more important than I think. 3.5, but amazing tempo. Yeah. It's not indefinitely your next spell costs 2 less. Yeah, that would be different. I think that it's not gonna be. You have to have another spell in hand with you that you want to use right away. And if you're already removing something for 4 damage, it's just pretty situational, I think. Deal 3 damage to an enemy and freeze it. Deal 1 damage to all other enemies. Now this card I can really get behind. This card I think is better than the last one. Because you're only dealing 1 less damage. You get a little bit of a whirlwind effect and freeze on top of all that. This is my kind of card. It's like a variation on a frost, on a cone of cold, but more targeted. Yeah, freezing swipe. Yeah, that's another good touchstone swipe. Very strong card. I would call this a strong 4. Considered a 4.5 for a brief moment. I don't think it's that amazing, but I'm just a huge fan of the freeze effect. Unholy Frenzy. 3 mana rare spell. Unholy rune. Choose an enemy minion. Your minions attack it. Resummon any that die. Oh. Your minions attack it. Now, is this random order or is it play order? It's usually play order for this sort of thing, right? So, if you can control which ones go, I really like this. Even if it's just one big minion of yours running into one big minion of theirs, you get your big minion back. Yeah, Hunter's got the 0 mana spell. There's that Demon Hunter weapon as well. Well, but that doesn't have the revive part, but I think this is strong. It is a little bit situational. Like if your board is empty, you might not have enough mana to play enough stuff to send in and play this. But I think I'm willing to call this another strong 4. You'll usually find the way to make it work out for you. Okay, 4 mana, a Lady Death Whisper, 4 mana, 4/3, legendary undead, 3 frost runes. Death Rattle, copy all frost spells in your hand. This is terrible. So it seems to me like frost is the weak for arena, is the weak of the 3. Even though we did just look at this card, or this card rather. This seems like trash. You gotta have frost spells to copy. I mean, if you can copy a frost spell, it's fine, but too situational. Call it a 1. I guess if you're building a Frost deck, I don't know. Malignant Horror. Maligma Horror. 4 mana, 2/4, common undead. Reborn. At the end of your turn, spend 5 corpses to summon a copy of this minion. Oh. So you play this, you spend corpses, you have 4 mana for 2/2/4s, and they have Reborn. Wait, is this really good? You're gonna run out of corpses, though, is the thing. It's not, like, indefinitely summoning. And, like, you're not gonna have 5 corpses by turn 4, probably, so it's not really a curve card. So those are the downsides. Let's say you play this in the late game around turn 10. You've had 10 minions die. You immediately get 2/2/4s with Reborn, and then probably summon another 2/4 with Reborn the following turn. Let's call this like a 3. It's the 3 of uncertainty. I think it could be quite nice. Gotta see it in action, though. Might of Menethil. 4 mana, 4/2 epic weapon with 2 frost runes. Battlecry, spend up to 3 corpses. Freeze that many enemy minions. Oh. That's great. You're just holding up everything with this card. I'll call it a 4 mana, 4/2. It might be another 4. I think this is a really strong card. You get a weapon hidden, and you get to freeze all their junk. That's nice. Nerubian Swarm Guard, 4 mana, 1/3, common undead, unholy rune. Taunt, Battlecry, summon 2 copies of this minion. 4 mana for 3/1/3 Swarm Guards. It's okay. It could really be annoying. About average. Tomb Guardians, 4 mana rare shadow spell, 2 unholy runes. You can buff its attack, it gets so much stronger. That's true, yeah, there is that hand buff stuff, huh? I guess that's why this exists the way it does, because it is copies. Summon 2/2/2 zombies with taunt, spend 4 corpses to give them Reborn. 4 mana, 2/2/2s is fine. If they have Reborn, it's much better. I'd say 3.5 for this. Again, you're not really... The thing about these corpse spending cards is that, like, you're gonna want to draft some of these, and then you're gonna be sad when you're playing them on curve, I think. That's gonna be the dynamic with Death Knight. For better or for worse. Blood Boil, 5 mana epic shadow spell, 2 blood runes. Lifesteal, infect all enemy minions. At the end of your turns, they take 2 damage. Oh, God. Reading comprehension. You spend 5 mana. Why does this just say lifesteal? I don't understand. You're giving the enemy minions lifesteal, but no, because that would mean that they gain health. You're giving... What are you giving lifesteal? Life leech. Like, I think I understand how this works, but I'm getting caught up on, like, the spell has lifesteal. But then it would be lifesteal for 0, because the spell's not doing damage. You get health when the enemies take damage. I think that's how this works, but I'm getting hung up because it's not like... That's not how the term lifesteal should be employed, right? Feels like a different keyword. Because, like, you're not... But, okay, here's my question. Here's my clarifying question, then. I play Blood Boil on the opponent's Ultrasaur. Do I get health when my Tiny Fin runs into their Ultrasaur? No, right? So the thing that gets lifesteal is any damage that they take specifically because of this spell. So that's I think what is happening, which is really strange. And it says at the end of your turns, which is another weird construction, but I assume that just means at the end of every turn. This is an interesting card. I kind of like cards designed like this, where you're stabilizing over time. Like, they have 7 minions on the board. You play Blood Boil. Let's say 2 of them die. You get 14 points of healing. 2 of them die. They have 5 more minions that can deal damage to you, but then they're still dying and healing you over time. I'm gonna say that this is like a strong card, but I have no clue how strong it is. So we'll just call it a 3.5. It seems interesting. I'd like to play with it someday. Cause like think about that one minion that is like overstated but deals damage to itself after each turn, and how interesting and stressful it is to play with that minion, knowing that it's gonna be going down in health. Corpse Bride. 5 mana 4/4 rare undead. Battlecry, spend up to 8 corpses. Summon. So when it says spend up to, does it do it automatically or do you get to choose how many you spend? I have to assume it does it automatically, like the most that you can. Why is turns plural? Because I assume it happens after the opponent's turn as well. Usually they say you and your opponents, or some other construction. They said turns this time. Summon a Risen Groom with stats equal to the amount spent. Doesn't leave a corpse. Okay, so you're playing a 5 mana. Let's say you play this on curve, and let's just say for simplicity's sake you've had a 1, 2, 3, and a 4 drop die. So you have 4 corpses. You play this, and you get 2 4/4s. That's strong. You play it later in the game, you get an 8/8. I think this is really strong. I'll call it a 4. 4 has been our 4 has been our rating du jour today. How many more of these? Marrow Manipulator, 6 mana, 5/5 rare undead. 3 frost runes. Battlecry, spend up to 5 corpses, deal 2 damage to a random enemy for each. 10 potential damage, random enemy. 6 mana, 5/5. I think it's pretty good. Maybe not as good as the other ones because it is random enemies you're hitting. But I think the damage is more often than not going to be worth what you're spending for it. Frostmourne, we know about this one. 7 mana, 5/3 legendary weapon. Death Rattle, summon every minion killed by this weapon. 15 damage total. It's strong but slow. Strong but slow. Honestly, these days, I would consider even rating it a 3 because you might be taking too much damage and losing too much tempo for it to work. But we'll still call it a 3.5 because, like, summoning your opponent's minions all at once can win you the game. I just feel like this hasn't aged super well. We'll find out. Frostworm's Fury, 7 mana, epic frost spell. 3 frost runes, deal 5 damage. Freeze all enemy minions, summon a 5/5 Frostworm. Okay, so this is sort of like we were talking about what the best arena card would have to be. And I said it would have to be something like Ultimate Infestation that does multiple things with initiative. This is that. It does 5 damage, freezes their board, and puts a 5/5 out. I think it's, in some ways, a better Ultimate Infestation because it's a lot easier to use. I'll call it a 4.5. Verging on 5. This might actually be a 5. But yeah, Fireland's Portal Plus. Right. For sure. Finally, the Scourge. 9 mana legendary Shadow. 2 unholy runes. Fill your board with random undead. 9 mana, random undead. I don't know. It could be anything. I'll call it average because I don't know. Okay, I gotta pee. I'll be right back. That's all for the Death Knights. Yeah, I mean, this could be a fun card for sure. It's just, I don't know how to rate these cards when it's so randomy. You just have to see what's in the pool and try it out a little bit. But with all the undead synergies that cross synergize, it could be good and fun. Probably it's better than a 2.5, but we'll have to just see. So the Death Knight cards don't seem like ultra strong to me. A lot of the strong ones you need to lean into the archetype sooner. What am I trying to say? You need to have like gotten it early in the draft and then you can build around it. I think it jury's out for me on what I think about Death Knight as a class. It's a really cool idea, this rune system. I think in some ways it might overcomplicate arena balancing things. I'm sure it'll be cool for constructed. I'm interested. Have you seen Woman King yet? I've not seen Woman King. There's some drama around that movie. We're gonna see. I'm trying to finish this review quickly because we're gonna try to catch Wakanda Forever tonight, Angry and I. All right. Oh, and they actually put the classes in order here. Great. So let's go right into the Death Knight expansion. Cool. Necrotic Mortician, 2 mana, 2/3 common, 2 unholy runes. Battle cry if a friendly undead died after your last turn. Discover an unholy rune card. You know, I've never been, from a gameplay perspective, a huge fan of the cards that are like, if you did this last turn, you could do this turn. The ones that are like, if you played an elemental last turn, discover something this turn. It always just seemed like a stressful game mechanic to me. So all these, if a friendly undead died after your last turn cards, don't seem that fun to me. Doesn't mean they're bad, and just a personal preference. But like the other one, you know, I don't see much downside to this. It's a 2 mana 2/3, and it's harder to pull off than the other one, right? So I'll probably actually call this a 2, since it's mostly just gonna be a 2/2/3. Vampiric Blood, 2 mana rare spell, 3 blood runes. Give your hero +5 health. Spend 3 corpses to gain 5 more and draw a card. Give your hero +5 health. Interesting. Not a fan. I mean, it just heals your face, and then if you got the corpses, you draw a card. So it does not seem like a good arena card to me at all. I think it's a 0.5. And that's 3 blood. Like, you need 3 blood tokens? I don't think people are going to draft this. Oh. Acolyte of Death, 3 mana, 3/4 common, 1 frost rune. After a friendly undead dies, draw a card. Now this is like the opposite of that last card. It's well statted, and it's got that upside that occasionally could happen for you. It raises your max health, not just plus 10 health. Yeah, I gathered that. Like, it actually gives you more health. I still don't really care very much. Yeah, and you could draw a bunch of cards off of this. We could even call this... It's probably a 3 because most of the time it's just a curve card. We'll call it a 3 with some nice upside. Blight Fang, 3 mana, 3/3 legendary beast, 1 unholy rune. Look at that art, wow. What a color palette. Battlecry, infect all enemy minions. When they die, you summon a 2/2 zombie with taunt. Huh. So you pair this with AoE and you've like engineered a cycle of hatred, sort of? So let's say your opponent has played 3 mana, 3/4. You play Blightfang. They kill your Blightfang. You use your hero power to kill their 3 mana, 3/4, and you have a 2/2 taunt on the board. And that's a pretty unfavorable circumstance for this. I might even call this a 4, like a kind of a weak 4. Having this flood of taunts come down could open up a lot of tactical possibilities for what you're trying to pull off. Like if you're trying to come back and you're just getting taunts gradually. It's nice. Meat Grinder, 3 mana, 3/4 epic mech, 1 unholy rune. Battlecry, shred a random minion in your deck to gain 3 corpses. So, Battlecry, shred a minion in your deck. That's nothing. That's free. So you're just playing a 3 mana, 3/4 and getting some corpses out of it. Totally average, totally acceptable, totally draftable. Fine. Soulbreaker, 3 mana, 3/2 common weapon, 1 blood rune. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, gain 2 corpses. It's a fiery war axe that farms corpses. I'll call that average. And this is on the upper side of average, verging on a 3, because weapons can be nice. Hey, Camila, very nice to see you. I'm trying to zip through this card review. There's so many cards to talk about. I can't go on for that much longer. Corpse Explosion, 5 mana rare shadow spell, 2 blood runes. Detonate a corpse to deal 1 damage to all minions. If any are still alive, repeat this. So you only need 1. Well, I guess you would repeat the detonated corpse part too. Like you need, like if you have 4 corpses, you might need multiple corpses to do this. Yeah, I was at home for a while and now I'm here doing this set review. It's kind of a dead time for Arena, so I haven't been streaming too much since I got back. I'll do a nice stream tomorrow. And then I'll play some of that new expansion. Very excited for fresh arenas coming down the pipeline. This is good, but I don't know. 5 mana is a little steep, right? And it's all minions, so I do feel that it would have to be a very particular situation to use this effectively. In fact, I'm actually going to put it at below average for that reason. I'm trying to like imagine like situations where the opponent has a lot of stuff on board, but nothing has like 1 or 2 health, and you don't have anything but you could play this and also still swing the board back after. I don't know. Not sold on it. Alexandros Mograine. 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 7 mana, 7/7 legendary undead, 3 blood runes, battlecry for the rest of the game, deal 3 damage to your opponent at the end of your turns. At the end of your turns, now this is that phrasing again that means it's going to happen twice every round. That's what I was thinking, it's like migraine. So, there was that other 7/7/7 that doubled all the stats of stuff in your deck, which puts a counter on the game. This is similar to that. This is more for an aggressive deck. Like, you would hope that you had done some face damage up until this point. But, like, every turn, they take 6 face damage? That's actually a lot. That's a lot. They would have to beat you fast after playing this. Only your turn. So, this... Have I been reading this wrong? This extremely weird and ambiguous phrasing? It actually is ambiguous, I think, because deal 3 damage to your opponent at the end of your turns. We saw this phrasing on an earlier card, and we assumed it happened after each turn. But Grim is saying it just happens on all of your singular turns. I think Grim might be right. Also, write your cards better. Alright, well, that's a little bit less good than I thought, but I'll call it a strong 4 and move on. Damn it. 8 mana, 8/8, Bone Guard Commander, rare undead, 1 blood rune taunt. Yeah, the 5 mana lifesteal spell is not as good, right? So adjust my score down accordingly in your imagination. Battlecry, raise up to 6 corpses as 1/2 risen footmen with taunt. Kind of a cool card. You put up a wall like in the Game of Thrones. You put up a wintry wall. It's a lot of stats. 8/8 taunt with a bunch of 1/2 taunts. Gonna call it my standard 4 again. I don't think it's good enough to be a 4.5 because it doesn't really come with initiative or anything. But it's a hell of a lot of stats. Soul Stealer, 8 mana, 5/5 epic undead, 3 blood runes, battlecry, destroy all other minions, gain 1 corpse for each enemy destroyed. Are you kidding me? Why? Whoa, destroy all other minions? Deathwing? So it's just like a Deathwing. 8 mana Deathwing. That's gotta be strong, right? I'll call this a 4.5. Just being able to clear the board whenever you want to and have a 5/5 out there already. Yeah, you're not discarding cards or anything. It's amazing. Okay, that's the Death Knight expansion. These seem generally stronger than a lot of the core cards, which I guess is as it should be. If I had to rate this expansion, well, let's see. That's fine. That's no good. This is nice. This is nice. This is nice. This is nice. Everything is just like nice. But nothing is amazing or like unthinkable other than maybe Soul Stealer. So I'd probably rate this expansion like a 3.5 for Death Hunter Knight. What is it? Death Knight. Should be interesting. We'll see how the class plays. Twisting Nether with a 5/5. Yeah, I guess that would be a better comparison point. Which, you know, the main bad thing about Twisting Nether is that you're not developing anything, so there you go. Alright, Demon Hunter it is. Fierce Outsider, 1 mana, 2/1 rush. Outcast. Your next outcast card costs 1 less. Robopapa gonna make some tossed salad and scrambled eggs. Do 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 do. Okay, see you later. Have a good one. 1 mana, 2/1 rush. So we already have a card that is like that, which is like a solid card. This has additional upside if you outcast it. Not a huge not a huge upside, but it's nice in a class that is all about like hand management and getting some good momentum going. Let's call this a 3. The 1 mana 2/1 rush that we already have is a totally solid card that you don't want to draft all the time. This is basically like that. 1 mana, Fell Spell, Unleash Fell, rare, deal 1 damage to all enemies, Mana Thirst 4 with Lifesteal. Whirlwind that doesn't affect your cards, strong. Whirlwind that doesn't affect your cards and also heals you, even stronger. I think that I would call this another 3. It's not a huge impact card, but it sure is going to be useful in a lot of niche situations. Did these just come out or did you hold off looking at them? These were released. I think everything has been out for, what, half a week or something like that? I just haven't really seen them. Mark of Scorn, 2 mana common spell, draw a card. If it's not a minion, deal 3 damage to the lowest health enemy. This is not a good arena card. 2 mana for draw 1 card. There's a lot of cards that do that. None of them are really worth picking. This has additional upside. The fact that it's the lowest health enemy targeted is nice, but still don't like it. Your deck is mostly going to be minions. I will call this a... It's either a 1 or a 0.5. I'll call it a 1, but a very weak, shaky 1. Wretched Exile, 2 mana, 2/3 epic. After you play an outcast card, add a random outcast card to your hand. Some outcast cards get really cheap when they're prepped. So you could pretty easily combo those with this. Random outcast cards are mostly going to be pretty strong. So this is a nice curve card that scales well into the late game if you have a little bit of synergy for it. So I would put this in a higher estimation than some of those other 2 mana 2/3s that are very situational. I would call this maybe a 3. A 3 to 3.5 range. Probably 3 is pretty just above average, yeah. Look at that art. I like this art. It's blobby. Feldori Warband, 4 mana common spell. Deal 4 damage. If your deck has no minions, summon 4 1/1 Illidari with Rush. Okay, your deck will have minions, so this is 4 mana for deal 4. Which is not good. It's not what you want. We'll call that 1 out of 5. You'll draft it sometimes if your other picks are bad. Valerian the Forgotten, 4 mana 3/5 legendary. Battlecry, add a random outcast card to the left and right sides of your hand. They cost 2 less. What? That's so much value and potentially tempo. Leaning into outcast stuff this expansion, huh? 4 mana 3/3, sucky stat line, but if you have, I don't know, man. Outcast cards can really swing games, so even if you fall a little bit behind, that's a huge amount of value. I might call this like a 4.5. Seems really, really good to me. Soul Eater's Scythe. Maybe it's not that good, but 4 mana 4/2 legendary. Start of game, consume 3 different minions in your deck. Leave behind souls that discover them. What? Okay, so let me imagine what this might mean. Start of game, 3 minions in your deck get replaced with this card. And then when you draw this card, you have to spend 1 mana and you get to discover between those 3 specific minions, right? I think I'm correct so far. What I don't know is if you've drawn a second one of these bound souls, whether you can discover the same minion or not. I would think that it would just be the same 3 options every time, right? So you would be able to pick the best one each time, which is technically an upside, although it does have the downside of you having to spend 1 additional mana. Constructed, so you can play 3 minions in your spell only deck. Oh, that's kind of cool. But I think this still could be good for Arena if it works how I'm imagining. Like if you get the same pool of 3 cards every time you're gonna discover. Like if one of those cards is a Twin Tyrant or whatever, you could just get a bunch of, I don't know. It's mostly just a 4 mana 4/2 weapon, which is fine. I'm gonna call it I'm gonna call it a 2.5. It cannot discover the same minion 3 times. Then it's definitely not a 3, I think. But at least you can order when you get those minions. I don't know. A little bit of upside. Deal with a Devil. 5 mana rare fell spell. Summon 2/3/3 Fell Fiends with lifesteal. If your deck has no minions, summon another. Okay, so I mean, again, that's not gonna happen. 5 mana for 2/3/3s is acceptable. And lifesteal makes it pretty nice. Vengeful Wallpaper. 7 mana, 5/5 rare demon. Rush. Cost 1 less for each outcast card you've played this game. Not a fan of this. If you played like 5 outcast cards, sure you get a cheap rush, but I actually think this is kind of a trash minion. It's too much effort for too little reward. I don't think you're really gonna run this. Okay. Brutal Annihilan. 9 mana, 9/9 epic demon, taunt rush. After this minion survives damage, deal that amount to the enemy hero. Deal the amount. After this minion survives damage, deal that amount of damage. So like if I run this into a Moarg, then it will deal 8 damage to the enemy hero, I guess. 5? It's up there. I don't think it's a 5. It's because it is just a 9 mana 9/9 at the end of the day. We can call it a 4.5. I don't think I've given anything 5 yet. There haven't been any incredible standouts. So as far as Demon Hunter stuff, it's pretty straightforward, pretty average stuff. They're doing this Outcast synergy, may or may not be that relevant. They're doing this like no minions and deck synergy, which is definitely not going to be relevant. But yeah, I think 4.5 might be a little high for this because yeah, like it's just a dig day basically. It has taunt, which makes it a lot better, and it has face damage, which does make it better too. But 4.5. And this is the best of the bunch. There's some kind of useless cards like the Walloper. Weapon is mid. 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 A lot of it's mid. As a whole, like these are the good cards here, I think. And they're enough to bump this back up to average, which was bumped down from some of the kind of unplayable cards here. Not a great expansion for Demon Hunter, but they were due for an off one, right? Druid. 1 mana 1/1 lingering zombie. Common undead. Death Rattle. Summon a 1/1 disarmed zombie. With Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 zombie. It's losing its arms. This is good. I like it. I like the flavor. I was talking earlier about how I like these cheap cards that have other bodies in them. I'm a big fan of that. This is a ping that is going to linger, as the title says. It's going to be really annoying over time. Exactly this. 1/1 It's exactly going to feel that way. I I want to call this like a 4.5. I think this card's amazing. Maybe this is overshooting it, but like all of our highest rated cards can't just be the big many mana powerful ones, right? Like really strong curve cards have to get some love too, and I think this is very strong. Especially in Druid, where you want bodies on the board for a lot of synergies. Chitinous Plating, 2 mana rare spell, gain 4 armor. At the start of your next turn, gain 4 more. 0. It's not an arena card. I don't know what it's for, but it's not for arena. Dead card in the draft. They should just take it out of arena. Nerubian Flyer, 2 mana, 2/3 common undead. Battlecry, if a friendly undead died after your last turn, summon a 2/2 Nerubian. So we've talked about this. It's not likely to happen. Not a lot of downside to this card either. We'll call it weak average and move on with our lives. 2 mana, Wither, epic nature spell. Choose a minion. Each friendly undead steals 1 attack and health from it. Again, leaning too much into synergy stuff. I don't like the card. I think it's not likely to work. Would not recommend drafting. Beetlemancy, 5 mana rare spell. Choose one. Gain 12 armor or summon 2 3/3 beetles with taunt. You pretty much ignore the 12 armor. Summon 2 3/3 beetles with taunt. We just saw a card that was like this. 5 mana for summon 2 3/3s with lifesteal. Taunt is a lot better though. So I'm gonna like this card a lot better than that one. I'm gonna like this card to the tune of 3 above average. Definitely a solid card. Elder Nadox. 5 mana 5/4 legendary undead. Battlecry, destroy a friendly undead. Your minions gain its attack. Wasn't expecting Druid to lean into the undead synergies. I hate this card. I think it sucks. You're removing one of your own minions from the field in order to just give attack buffs to the rest. Like, you use this every once in a blue moon to get lethal. And otherwise, it's a bad Booty Bay bodyguard that doesn't have taunt. Borderline unplayable. Pick it if you have an amazing undead deck, maybe. Maybe, but even then, it's just a win more card. Not a fan. Unending Swarm, 6 mana common spell, resurrect all friendly minions that cost 2 or less. How many would you need to make it worth it? Let's say it's a mix of 2-drops and 1-drops. So like 1/3s and 2/3s. For 6 mana, you would want like 4 at least for this to be okay. You're not always gonna have decks with a lot of cheap cards, and then even within those decks, you're not always gonna have games where enough of them have died. So I actually don't think this is that great. The 1-drop puts 3 in the pool. That's a good point, actually. You could just play the 1-drop and a 2-drop and you're set. Haven't given this score a lot today. I'll call it a 1.5. I think it's significantly below average, but definitely draftable and playable in a certain kind of aggressive druid deck. Underking, 7 mana 6/6 epic undead rush. Battlecry and Death Rattle gain 6 armor. 7 mana 6/6 rush. That gives you a crap ton of armor. It's okay. I'll call it average. 6/6 rush. It's okay. I don't know. It's fine. Not much to say about it. Anubricon. 8 mana, 7/7. Legendary undead. Battlecry, gain 8 armor. This turn your minions cost armor instead of mana. So you're playing a 7/7 for free, is what I'm understanding here. And then you have like 8 more mana, the armor mana, to play stuff out with. And if you happen to have some armor lying around from other cards, you could probably just play your hand out. 5? I'm considering it. Seems like an extremely strong mana cheat. And what if you just need armor? You could just play this as a body and get some armor and go out of lethal range or something. I will call it a 4.5 because I don't think it is like an instant win card per se. You still need certain things to line up. You need like enough minions to support it, but it seems quite strong. And you're right. You could get it. You know, like we were saying, you can get armor from other stuff. But how many minions are you gonna have in your hand to make it work? Is what I'm wondering. Like, are you gonna have like 3, 8, or more cost minions in hand? No, not typically. Maybe you're gonna have 1 that you can cheat out. Crypt Keeper, 8 mana, 4/6, common undead, taunt, costs 1 less for each armor you have. So this obviously combos beautifully with this, but otherwise is kind of trash. Not a fan. It's way too expensive. Okay. Druid's expansion, I think, is bad. I don't like the armor stuff that they're trying to make work, and I don't like the undead synergies. This is useless. Unlikely to work. Basically useless. And, like, the solid stuff is, like, Beetlemancy. It's not gonna, like... It's not gonna change the meta or anything. It's just a couple of 3/3s. The only really notable card... Well, actually, there's 2 of them. I would say the Lingering Zombie and the Anubricon. And those are enough to not give Druid an embarrassing score. We'll leave it with a 1 for now. Don't really like the Druid stuff. Love this, though. Lingering Zombie. On to Hunter. Always like to see what Hunter has in store for us. Okay, Ricochet. 1 mana, common, arcane spell. Deal 1 damage to 3 random enemies. So I see people were comparing this to like arcane missiles, the arcane missiles card. The main difference is that this says 1 damage to 3 random enemies, which I assume means that it will disperse that damage to 3 possible enemies if there are. Like, if there's 2 minions and their face, I assume everything takes 1 damage. By the wording of this, although I don't know that for sure. Fine. It's totally acceptable. Like, the fact that you apparently can control where that damage is going is huge, and it makes all the difference between this and arcane missiles that could just go all 3 face. So I'll call this average. I like this sort of thing for a Hunter card, especially because Hunter doesn't have pings. Arcane Quiver. 2 mana, epic arcane spell. Discover a spell from your deck. If it's arcane, give it spell damage +1. You're spending 2 mana to get something from your deck. It's not great. But you do get a spell, which could be important. So we'll call this 1.5. Not a huge fan. Conjured Arrow. 2 mana, rare arcane spell. Deal 2 damage to a minion. Mana Thirst 6. Draw that many cards. Draw. So I assume you draw 2. Unless you have spell damage. That's great. 2 mana, 2 damage, draw 2. That's fantastic. And you'll play it before the Mana Thirst in a pinch if you have to. Like if there's something gnarly in the early game, like a poison you gotta kill. No shame in playing this early. Stuff in Hunter that can deal damage and refill your hand, super valuable because you're often playing aggressive archetypes, right? Wonder if it draws against Divine Shield. Oh, I guess it probably wouldn't, huh? Because it does work the way it does with spell damage, right? I'm gonna call this a 3.5. Really good Hunter card here. Scourge Tamer. 2 mana, 2/2 Epic Undead. Battlecry craft a custom Zombeast. That's fun, right? Those are always fun. You take a little tempo hit, but you get a Zombeast out of it. It's gonna be at least a 4.5. If the Zombeasts are good enough, it could even be a 5. Definitely a 5 for the fun factor. I like the idea of this. I'm looking forward to playing with it. Shock Spitter, 2 mana, 2/2 Common Beast, Battlecry, deal 1 damage, improved by your hero attacks this game. So if you got weapons, 2 mana, 2/2 deal 1 damage, already totally acceptable. And it's got really tremendous upside. Not the likeliest upside, but I mean, you could pick up a weapon or 2 in Hunter probably. Let's call this a 3. Let's call this a 3.5 because I think pings are really valuable in Hunter, so it fills a need, even as its stats aren't the best. Silvermoon Farstrider, 2 mana, 2/3 rare. Battlecry, give all arcane spells in your hand spell damage +1, which really helps out something like Conjured Arrow, but is not likely to have much impact. So we'll call this a 2, since that's what we typically give the 2 mana, 2/3s. Come on. Halduran Brightwing, 3 mana, 3/4 legendary. Battlecry, give all arcane spells in your deck spell damage +1. Same as I just said. I think 3 mana, 3/4 is a little bit of a better stat line than 2 mana, 2/3. But it's in that 2.5 range. Keen Eye Spotter, 3/3/4 common. Whenever your hero attacks a minion, set its health to 1. So any weapon that you have equipped will kill any minion in 1 hit. If this is on the board. I think this is a cool card. You do need to combo it with a weapon, so I'll call it a 3 and not get too excited about it. But I like it. It's a cool card. Eversong Portal, 4 mana, rare arcane spells. Summon 1/4/4 links with Rush. Improved by spell damage. My understanding is, I was seeing some people talk about this. Your hero, oh yeah. My understanding is, you summon 2 4/4 links if you have spell damage, etc. Which is way better than 1 5/5 links. Yeah, right, considering the picture. So, 4 mana for a 4/4 rush. Fine. But the upside is tremendous, and there are spell damage synergies they're trying to build in here with these arcane spells. So, I don't know what to rate it. I'll call it a 3. If it was just summon a 4/4 rush, it would probably be a 2. But the upside is enough to bump it up a whole number, I think. Hope of Kel'Thas. 6 mana, 4/2 legendary. So it's a 3.5 or 4 just because it can win you the game. Yeah, but there's so many cards that are like that can win you the game. But for Arena, you really have to evaluate how likely it is going to be in your typical deck, in your typical game. I don't know what the answer is with spell damage, but my assumption is that it's relatively low. After your hero attacks, give your minions +1/+1 wherever they are. So 6 mana for a 4/2 weapon is trash. But this buffs your board, hand, and deck. So it could be like a 3.5. And I would really need to take this for a spin to know how I feel about it. 2 +1/+1 buffs because you have 2 swings. Could be really good. That's Hunter. They're not going crazy with the power level on these cards, which I like. A lot of them are pretty reasonable stat lines, just in general, that I've seen so far. A lot of these are pretty solid utility cards. The Ricochet Shot, the Conjured Arrow, the Shock Spitter. And then you have these crazy upside cards like Scourge Tamer, Eversong Portal, and Hope of Kel'Thas that, if the situation gets aligned, could run away with the game. I think this is an above average expansion for Hunter. But like not too above average, so we'll call it a 3. Which I want to say is our best, other than maybe we rated Death Knight 3 or higher. Okay, on to Mage. Arcane Bolt. Fastest runner in the world. 1 mana, common, arcane spell. Deal 2 damage. Mana Thirst 8, deal 3 damage instead. It's just, yeah, it's just Arcane Shot and a little bit of upside. Scales better into the late game. We can call this... It's a 2 or a 2.5. It's a strong 2. For Mage, this isn't that special. Arcane Worm, 1 mana, 1/2, Battlecry, add an Arcane Bolt to your hands. Okay, so now you have a body that produces an Arcane Bolt for later. I could get behind the Worm. I like bodies that generate other things. We'll call it a 3. Magister's Apprentice, 2 mana, 3/2, common. Your arcane spells cost 1 less. Fairly acceptable stats. Pretty negligible upside. I want to call this a 2 as well. Could be nice. A nice little curve piece. Okay, Prismatic Elemental, 2 mana, 1/3, epic elemental. Battlecry, discover a spell from any class. It costs 1 less. So with the discount, you know, this is essentially 1 mana for a 1/3. Totally fine. And you get to discover a spell. I think that's quite strong. I like discovering spells. We'll call it a 4. Arc Splitter, 3 mana, 3/2, rare. Death Rattle, add 2 arcane bolts to your hand. A lot of these mage cards so far are giving little bits of tempo and value over time, but not right away. So you could get run over as a mage running these cards. But 2 arcane bolts is nice. I'm not really sure if I like this card. We'll call it average for now. You are sacrificing a lot of tempo in an effort to make it up later. Vast Wisdom, 3 mana, rare spell. Discover 2 spells that cost 3 or less. Swap their costs. Another really slow card. Swap their costs. So you could really do like a... You could do a gamble where you try to get an expensive spell and a cheap spell. I think this is strong, but slow. I want to call it 3.5. Because imagine... No, not 2.5. 3.5. Because imagine like playing this in the mid-game-ish and then getting a huge spell that you can play for cheap. And having another spell in hand for later. Hard to evaluate, though. It might be worse than that because it's slow. I think the swap would be generally beneficial. Because you get to cheat out big spells, right? And then you have an expensive, crappy spell, but you might even eventually use that if you run out of cards. So Swap is 3 to 0, not big difference. I don't understand. What do you mean 3 to 0? Oh, I missed that part. They cost 3 or less. Oh, then I don't really care. Then no, I actually completely change. If you can't get big spells, I don't like this card. No, I misunderstood. If you're only getting cheap spells, I mean, I guess you can get Conjurer's Calling, but I would bump this all the way down to a 2. I don't think it's worth taking the time to do this just for cheap spells. Energy Shaper, 4 mana, 3/5 epic. Battlecry, transform all spells in your hand into ones that cost 2 more. They keep their original cost. Honestly, you're gonna draft spells that you want to use, right? And you might generate spells that you don't want to use. I don't think I like this card. It's understated. It's very random. You need conditions to make it work. You still might get screwed. If you have a lot of bolts, it might be good. Yeah, that's a good point. So you could combo it with some of the other cards here. Vexillus, 5 mana, 3/5 legendary elemental. Your arcane spells cast twice. It's a legendary. It's extremely understated. It's conditional. Not good for arena. I'll call this a 1 as well. Because if you stock up on arcane spells, you might be able to run this. But honestly, it might be a 0.5. I don't think you want a 5 mana 3/5. I think that's really bad. Arcane Defenders. 8 mana common arcane spell. Summon 2 5/6 golems with taunt and can't be targeted. That's good stats for cost. I like that can't be targeted a lot, actually. I think this will be strong. I think this is like maybe a 4, because it doesn't have initiative. We'll call it a 4. I think this is really strong, though. Grandmaster Romoth. 9 mana, 5/7 legendary. Battlecry. Recast each spell you've cast this game that didn't start in your deck. It's another really conditional legendary. Why are the legendaries all so bad? I hate it. It's terrible stats. It's too conditional. So Mage is looking bad. These are fine. Not impressed. This is probably okay. Not impressed. Not impressed. Not impressed. Not impressed. Impressed and not impressed. So there's like one really good card here, and the rest is... It's just stuff that's too slow. I think overall I would call Mage... Honestly, God, it's like a... We'll say 1.5 to be generous. I was thinking about giving it 1. Alright, what do we have left? Paladin, Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior. 6 classes, damn. Alright, let's keep rolling. Feast and Famine, 1 mana common. Give your hero +3 attack this turn. Mana Thirst 4 and Lifesteal. 1 mana, deal 3 damage. Totally solid. Lifesteal is a nice little bonus. 1 mana, deal 3. I think I like that enough to call this average. Light of the Bronze. 1 mana common, no, rare spell. Discover a dragon, mana Thirst 7, summon a 5/5 Drake with taunt. Whoa! So depending on the dragon pool, it depends on the dragon pool, but it's never going to be bad, right? You're probably not ever going to be forced into playing this early in the game. Just wait until turn 7, play this, get a 5/5 for 1 mana, and it has taunt. 5 is our first 5. I think you're right, it's a 5. No other card has jumped out to me yet as being an easy 5. But my god, dragons are so strong. Discovering one for 1 mana is already great. Having this 5/5 taunt upside is insane. Why does Paladin always get the most busted cards? First 5. Sanguine Soldier. 1 mana, 2/1 rare. Divine Shield. Battlecry. Deal 2 damage to your hero. Oh, interesting. So you take a little... It's like a Flame Imp, then. I think it's worth it. 1 mana, 2/1 Divine Shield. That's a killer early game card. That, honestly, given that we gave that Druid 1-drop of 4.5, I think we could call this a 4.5 as well. Oh, thank you, Rossum. Thank you. We for me, not just for thee. Thank you for the 23 months. I appreciate that support. Thank you for the Twitch Prime. Putting in the hard labor today, going through the new card mines, so... Financial support definitely makes the difference. Yeah, I like this minion. Blood Matriarch Liadrin. 2 mana, 3/2 legendary. After you summon a minion with less attack than this, give it Divine Shield and Rush. Whoa. Whoa. What are we gonna do to celebrate 2 years? What anniversary is that? Is that like a crystal anniversary? Moss anniversary? There's a lot of cards that have less attack than 3. And automatically giving them Divine Shield Rush is nice. And this is fine to just play on curve and use as a 3/2, so... So, I think, like, a high 3.5 or a low 4 for this one. So when it works, it's just giving you that little bit of surplus that can help you pull ahead in the early game, the mid game. Or Kel'Thalas, 2 mana rare holy spell. Give a friendly minion +3 attack. Give your hero +2 attack this turn. Oh, so it's kind of like a better Tinker's Sharp Sword, right? Like you don't need to have a weapon equipped. Two mana for +3 attack and then +2 additional attack. I think it's solid. It's not amazing. We'll call it a strong 3, maybe a 3.5. Seal of Blood. 3 mana common holy spell. Give a minion +3/+3 and Divine Shield. Deal 3 damage to your hero. This is an interesting archetype. This like dealing self damage to... I don't mind it. 3/+3 and Divine Shield. So this is like a better Blessing of Kings, right? 1 mana less, 2 stat points less, but you get Divine Shield out of it. This is insane. I think this is like... It's at least a 4, probably a 4.5. Yeah, the 3 mana, 3 attack and Divine Shield spell. Yeah, and this comes with extra health points. Daring Drake. 4 mana, 4/4 common. Dragon. Rush. Battlecry if you're holding a dragon, gain +1/+1. We discussed earlier that a 4 mana, 4/4 rush is probably a high 2. Maybe a low 2.5. This has a little bit of upside on it. Call it a 2.5 for dragon synergies and stuff. Time Warden, 4 mana, 3/5 epic dragon. Battlecry until the end of your next turn. Dragons you summon gain taunt and Divine Shield. These 2 cards, by the way, dilute the dragon pool in Paladin a little bit, so that earlier dragon card gets a little bit worse because of these. Not that that's a huge consideration. I don't think you're going to pull this off a lot. I'll call this a 2. Probably at best. It'd be hard to get that ability off. Blood Crusader, 6 mana, 5/5 epic. Battlecry, your next Paladin minion this turn costs health instead of mana. Paladin minion. Yeah, another very situational card, and another one that bleeds you of your health. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And I might not even like it. But it could win you some games if you can cheat out something huge early. Big paladin minion in hand. It's just situational. I'll say average. Thank you for the gifted sub to Grim HS. Thank you, Rossum. Thank you. That's 12 gifted subs you've given. Very generous. Boop, 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 boop. Go back. Alright. Anachronos. 7 mana, 8/8 legendary dragon. Battle cry. Send all other minions 2 turns into the future. What? 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 I would love to see how this is gonna work. So I assume every other minion on the board disappears for 2 turns. Right? So 7 mana 8/8 is fine stats. And it's sort of like you're making everything dormant for a while. I think this should be pretty good. Maybe not game winning. It is still just an 8/8 body. And the problem is if you can't convey that 2-turn break into an advantage, you're gonna still have to deal with their stuff. But I think it's promising. That's Paladin. So, a lot of the Paladin stuff is... I think this is a pretty good expansion for Paladin. That's true. If there's not enough board space, some minions won't come back. That'll be an interesting thing to negotiate. Probably a high skill level thing to do correctly. But I think stuff like this is solid. Really solid 1-drop here. I like this a lot. And some stuff that has pretty good upside and not a whole lot of downside, like the Liadrin. You have a nice tempo spell here, a really nice buff. The dragon stuff, these don't do a lot for me. But like Flight of the Bronze, Sanguine Soldier, really nice expansion. I think I would actually call this a 4 out of 5. Some mediocre stuff, but generally quite strong. Undying Allies for Priest. 0 mana, common shadow spell. After you play an undead this turn, give it reborn. Too situational. Don't like it. Don't want to see it. Enough said about that. Animate Dead. 1 mana rare shadow spell. Resurrect a friendly minion that costs 3 or less. For 1 mana? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You summon a 1-drop for 1 mana? That's fine. Oh, that's a 3. I think it's solid. A bit random, but there's not much downside. Crystal Smith Cultist, 1 mana, 1/2 common. Battlecry if you're holding a shadow spell, gain +1/+1. Yeah, I mean, this is like a worse version of that Joust card, which is already bad for a 1-drop. So, worse Joust. I don't know, it's like a 1. I don't like this. Mind Eater. 2 mana, 3/2 common undead. Death Rattle, add a copy of a card in your opponent's deck to your hand. This is a curve card that gets you a free card in hand. I love it. No notes. It's just like a free value. It's an undead card. Probably 4 might be a little bit much, but maybe not. Maybe it is a 4. I'll call it 3.5 for now. Haunting Nightmare, 3 mana, 3/3 epic undead. Death Rattle, haunt a card in your hand. When you play it, summon a 3/3 soldier. I like this. You're spending 3 mana to get a 3/3 and an additional 3/3, which is good stats for cost, but it's worth pointing out that the times when you struggle in your early game into mid game are when you've drawn too much late game in your hand. And this is only going to exacerbate that problem, because if you have like an 8, 9, or 10 drop, by the time you're playing that, the extra 3/3 might not matter that much. Worth mentioning. Generally speaking, though, I think this is strong. We could call it a 4 even. Bone Caller, 4 mana, 2/4 rare. Taunt, Death Rattle, resurrect a friendly undead that died this game. I can't. It's just more too particular synergy stuff. Not interesting, not good for Arena. Grave Digging, 4 mana epic shadow spell. Draw 2 cards. Cost 1 if a friendly undead died after your last turn. It's 4 mana, draw 2. Not good. Maybe you get it active, then it's 1 mana, draw 2. Big whoop. Say 1.5 because drawing 2 in Priest can be useful, but that's being generous. I'll put it that way. High Cultist Basilisk. Nightmare Blunt rotation. 5 mana, 3/5 legendary. Battlecry, resurrect all friendly undead that died after your last turn. There will be a lot of undeads in the rotation. Yeah, but it's such a particular condition. I'm not sold. And maybe I'm wrong, and all the stuff that's like if an undead died last turn, maybe all that stuff will be active all the time, but it's still a tagged minion synergy, which generally in Arena is not good. Same goes for this. I think it's bad. I don't like any of these cards. They're just going to be clogging up the draft. I don't like it. Shadow Word Undeath. 5 mana rare shadow spell. Deal 2 damage to all enemies. If a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 2 more. Bad. They're all bad. They're all bad, boring, and dumb. I don't like them. It's opponent's turn, and then like if you trade something in on your turn. Yeah, it's just worse Holy Nova. It's still AoE, so I'll give it a 1.5, but poopy poop poo. Sister Svalna. 6 mana, 6/6 legendary undead. Battlecry, permanently add a Vision of Darkness to your hand, which is 3 mana, discover a shadow spell. And so no matter how many times you play it, you get it back. That's cool. Wow, this is amazing for control fights. I like this card. Vision of Darkness kind of slow, but if it's just always there, whenever you need an out, you could look for one. 4, verging on 4.5 for me. Okay. Priest, not impressive either. This is okay. I don't think these are very good. This is a nice little thief piece. Always like to thief in Priest, so I like to see that. I think that's good. This doesn't seem that good. This does not seem good. So it seems like a lot of these Priest cards are either solidly above average or solidly below. Nothing incredibly stand out. I guess the most standout-y card is the legendary, maybe. Pretty average overall. All right, Rouge. Shadow of Demise, no cost, legendary shadow spell. Each time you cast a spell, transform this into a copy of it. Is this good? Could be good. I'm gonna call it a 2. Very situational, but if you build a deck with strong spells, this will probably be nice to have. Concoctor. 1 mana, 1/2 common. Battlecry, add a random concoction to your hand. I'm gonna random 3 cost for 3. Oh, and they mix together? Interesting. Destroy a random enemy minion. Deal 3 damage. Add a card from another class, cost 3 less. Draw 2 cards. Well, some of these are obviously much better than others. Destroy a random enemy minion seems to be the highlight. Add a card might be the low light. So like none of these, I mean, there's one really strong one, the rest are fine. But you get it for free off of this 1 mana 1/2. We'll call it average. Nice to get a little bit of value. Ghostly Strike. 1 mana common spell, deal 1 damage, combo draw a card. It's a ping that lets you draw a card. I like that. I think it's good. I think it's like a 3.5. Keep the deck moving, keep the damage flowing. Perfect rogue card. So the mixed ones get both of the benefits, but they stay 3 mana. That makes sense. Your next concoction costs 0. 2 mana, 3/2. Okay. Acceptable stat line. Occasional upside. It's a strong 2 or a weak 2.5. Potion Belt. Discover 2 concoctions. So they're going in on this concoction idea. Discover 2 concoctions, and they cost 3 mana to play together because they'll combine. But you've already spent 2 mana to find them. I don't think this is amazing, but I think it could be fun and definitely worth picking on occasion. Potion Master Putricide. 2 mana, 1/4 legendary undead. After a minion dies, add a concoction to your hand. Now that could get pretty good. 5? I don't think it's a 5. It's just a 2 mana 1/4, and you need stuff on the board already. Well, it doesn't say your own minion. It could be opponent's minions. I'm not sure what to rate it. We will call it a 4 for now. Because you do need to be killing stuff and spending 2 mana to play this. And getting good concoctions. But I think it's nice. Rotten Rodent, 2 mana, 2/1, common undead beast. Battlecry, reduce the cost of all death rattle cards in your deck by 1. This is a 2 mana, 2/1. Why would I want to play this card? I don't want to play this card. It's a 2 mana, 2/1. Like, these are in your deck. It's not even like stuff in your hand. It's you have to like then draw these and get something out of the mana reduction. It's not good. Might even be a 0. Vile Apothecary, 3 mana, 2/4 epic undead. At the end of your turn, add a random concoction to your hand. Very understated, but you get the concoction. If you have synergy, I think if you don't have synergy for it, this is pretty mid. If you do have synergy for it, it becomes okay. Let's call it a 3. You think this is better than the legendary? I don't think the legendary is nearly as good as Grim does. I don't know if this is better. It really depends on the board state. Like how much stuff you can clear in a short amount of time. Noxious Infiltrator, 4 mana, 2/5 rare, poisonous. Battlecry, if a friendly undead died after your last turn, deal 1 damage to a minion. Battlecry. Oh, but it's poisonous 1 damage. Ooh. I like this card. It's a health statted poisonous minion with a cool upside. I could rate this a strong 3.5. Scourge Illusionist, 4 mana, 4/4 epic undead, death rattle. Add a 4/4 copy of another death rattle minion in your deck to your hand. It costs 4 less. So if you happen to pull a big death rattle minion, you get that death rattle minion out for cheap, but it's only a 4/4. If you happen to pull a small one, you can essentially play it right away. I think this is good. If you have a couple of death rattles, I think this is like maybe even a 3.5. Because 4 mana 4/4 is not that bad at the end of the day. Alright, all the cheap rogue cards. I'm not blown away by the concoction stuff. I think it's all really mid. In fact, looking at it all together, and considering it, calling it below average, it's like a 2 or a 2.5. Alright, just a few more. We have, what, 3 more? Scourge Troll. 1 mana, 1/3, epic undead. Death Rattle's given to this minion, triggered twice. Whatever. It's 2.5 is average. Death Weaver Aura, 2 mana common shadow spell. Give a minion Death Rattle, summon 2/3/2 zombies. Overload 1. 2/3/2 zombies. I mean, if you get, I think it's probably like a 3. Pretty nice stats if you can land it on something. Shadow Suffusion, 3 mana rare shadow spell. Give your minions Death Rattle, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. I've seen a lot of cards like this, and it's always a big reward, but difficult to pull off. And it's random enemy. Yeah, I don't think this is that good. Be like a 1.5. Unliving Champion, 3 mana 3/2 common undead. Battle Cry, if a friendly undead dies after your last turn, summon 2/3/2 zombies. I'm just kind of getting tired of saying the same thing over and over again, which is like, no, it's not good because the synergy needs to happen. And if you can't count on the synergy to happen, then why are you playing a 3 mana 3/2? It's the same thing. It's all these other cards. Questions. 4 mana rare shadow. Draw 2 minions. For each that costs 5 or more, summon a 2/3 spirit with taunt. So if you don't pull expensive minions, you just spent 4 to draw 2. If you do, you get a little taunt out of it. Not a huge fan. We'll call it maybe even a 1.5, because in Arena, you're usually not pulling huge things for your deck. But I guess there's upside there. Harkener of Dread. 5 mana 2/2 common undead. Taunt. Death Rattle, summon a 6/6 undead with taunt. So with these cards that are like tiny bodies with big bodies inside them, the downside is always that it takes them a while to get going. That's kind of ameliorated by giving this taunt. That's really what you want. Because then they have to get through this 2-2. And then they also have to get through the other taunt. So I actually think this is very good. Probably like a 4. Rotgill, 5 mana, 3/6 legendary. Potion of Madness, oh god. Undead Murloc. Battlecry, give your other minions Death Rattle, give your minions +1/+1. Reading some of these cards feels like I'm having a stroke. Give your other minions Death Rattle, give your minions +1/+1. I don't know if it's good. Because it's expensive, it's understated, you need a lot of stuff on board for it to really pop off. It's a win more card. If you hit, like, maybe 2 things, it could be worth it. We'll call it average for now. Blood, Berserker. 8 mana, 3/8 epic, undead. Taunt, lifesteal, reborn, death rattle. Deal 3 damage to a random enemy. Taunt, lifesteal, reborn, death rattle, 3 damage to a random enemy. I like this card. It's sort of like that 4 mana or that 6 mana 4/6 from earlier, but much better. It's expensive, but it could stabilize your health. It can protect other stuff. And as things are trading into it, even though it doesn't have a lot of attack, it's going to soften them up so that when the death rattle procs, it's decently likely to kill some of their attackers. Yeah, I agree that it's kind of going to be a pain to get through. Call it 3.5 because it's maybe a little passive, but I like the card. Overlord Drakuru, 9 mana, 6/8 legendary, Rush Wind Fury. After this attacks and kills a minion resurrected on your side. Whoa, what? 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 And it has Wind Fury, so it can kill 2 things and steal 2 things? I'm gonna say 5. Kinda nutty card. Wow, what the hell? Most likely has to survive for the steal. Well, that's what I was gonna ask. Because by the language on this, it wouldn't have to, because it says after this attacks and kills a minion. Okay, but which would mean that it checks after the attack. It has to live. Well, if it doesn't have to live, it's a 5. If it does have to live, maybe it's a 4.5. We'll put it that way. Some like pretty conditional stuff here. I generally like the low power level of this expansion, but I don't like all the dumb synergy stuff. This is really strong. This seems really strong. Oh wait, I missed one. From the other side, 10 mana, rare spell, shadow. Summon a copy of each minion in your hand. They attack random enemy minions, then die. Honestly, it's like a 2. I don't think it works that well. You have to have the right minions in hand. And you're using your whole turn to play this. And you're not gaining anything on the board, so it's a fine board clear event. So yeah, for Shaman, I think I would rate them. I at least 3.5 actually. Now that I'm looking, there's some really strong stuff in here. Alright, Warlock. 1 mana, 1/3, Devourer of Souls, a legendary undead minion. After a friendly minion dies, gain its death rattle. Well, there's no downside to this, and it's got a pretty sweet upside, so I'll call that a pretty solid 4, maybe even higher. The death rattles are plentiful enough that you could probably pull it off. Shallow Grave, 2 mana epic spell. Trigger a friendly minion's death rattle, then destroy it. This one I'm less in love with. It's much more particular than the other one. But maybe some application. We'll say 1.5 for niche death rattle decks. Scourge Supplies, 3 mana common spell. Draw 3 cards, choose 1 to discard. Ooh! So it's the next evolution of the 3 mana draw 2 formula. This time you get 3 and then choose 1 to get rid of. Here's the thing though, it's Warlock. You do not need to draw. You don't need card. I don't know why they're always pumping Warlock full of cards that draw more cards, because you already have your tap to do that. Just redundant to me, so I don't typically like these cards very much. I'll call it a 1.5 for that reason. Walking Dead, 3 mana, 2/5 common, undead taunt. If you discard this minion, summon it. Ignoring the ability, I think it's a totally acceptable taunt. Maybe it's a 2. Maybe the stats aren't that great, but... Twisted Nether, 4 mana, rare shadow spell. Hey, Roldy. Destroy a minion, give its stats to a random undead in your hand. Okay, well, 4 mana, destroy a minion, that's Assassinate. So this is already very good. And if you happen to... See, this is one of those undead synergies where there's... Like, you don't need to have it happen for the card to work. And if it does happen, it's incredible. So... It might even be a 4.5. Amorphous Slime, 5 mana, 5/3 epic. Battlecry, discard a random undead. Death Rattle, summon a copy of it. Now this one, and we're seeing the difference between this one does need the undead in hand to function. Therefore, I kind of hate it. 0.5. This set has really clarified my feelings about what kinds of synergies work in Arena and what kinds don't. It's really made that distinction stark. Savage Ymir Jar, 5 mana, 7/7 rare undead rush. Battlecry, discard 2 cards. 5 mana, 7/7 rush, amazing. Battlecry, discard 2 cards, devastating. I would say it might be more playable than you would think, because again, you do have tap for refill in Warlock. And you just hold it until you're in a desperate situation, you need it. It's probably not going to win you a ton of games, but it's okay. Soul Barrage, 5 mana rare shadow spell. When you play or discard this, deals 6 damage randomly split among all enemies. I don't like 6 damage randomly split for 5 mana. I think that's trash. I think it's like almost a 0. There've been so many 0.5s today. Infantry Reanimator, 6 mana, 4/4 Battlecry, resurrect a friendly undead, give it reborn. Same comments as before. I'm gonna call this a 1 just because by the time you're playing this, it's decently likely that you could have gotten an undead out there at some point. But it's a weak 1. It's a shaky 1. Darkon Druthier, 8 mana, 6/6 legendary undead, lifesteal. At the end of your turn, deal 6 damage to the enemy hero. So you're playing a 6/6 for 8 mana. You're dealing 6, like a fireball to their face, and you're healing from that? It's kind of a good finisher. Even if they remove the body right away, it will have done some significant damage. It's almost like a charge minion. in that sense. We could call this a 3.5, although it may not be that good. Alright, that's Warlock. Warlock... A lot of this stuff, I'm just like, I'm not really sure what it does for the class. But then there's some stuff like the Nether that looks really good. On balance, I'd say it's below average, though. Like the slime, the amorphous slime and stuff, I'm not really that impressed. Last class, here we go. We're bursting through. Sun Fury Champion, 1 mana, 1/3 epic. After you cast a fire spell, deal 1 damage to all minions. It's probably a 2. It's just a 1 mana, 1/3. Blazing Power, 2 mana common fire spell. Give a minion +1/+1. Repeat for each damage friendly character. To make it worth it, you'd need at least one damage friendly character, which you usually have in the form of your own face. A conditional buff, I would say also 2. I'm not that impressed by it, but it could be okay. Embers of Strength, 2 mana rare fire. Summon 2 1/2 guards with taunt. Mid. Mana Thirst 6, give them +1/+2. That makes them 2/4 taunts. I think it's strong, but not like incredible. 2 mana for 2/4 taunts. We'll say a bit of a weak 3.5. Asvedon the Grand Shield, 3 mana 3/3 legendary. Cast a copy of the last spell your opponent played. Oh, that could be really fun. Call that a 4. You just hold it and then play it as a tech card once they've played a strong spell. It might be hard to get it lined up though, so maybe more of a 3.5. 4 mana, Last Stand, rare. Draw a taunt minion, double its stats. I mean, you're probably going to have taunts in your deck, but you're going to be able to take the time to do this. And then you're going to play your big taunt minion and they just hard remove it. I think there's a 1. Light of the Phoenix, 4 mana, common fire spell. Draw 2 cards, cost 1 less for each damage-friendly character. More of these, like, crappy draw cards that... Not much to say about. Decent. You know what? Actually, it's probably at least an Arcane Intellect because, like I said, your face is probably going to be damaged. So a slightly conditional Arcane Intellect. Maybe you could argue for a 1.5. You think it's good? Saw Judge gave this a 4 or a 5. Oh man, Warrior is sometimes hurting for draw, but you'd rather discover something. I don't know. I need to be converted, I guess. Sunfire Smithing, 4 mana rare fire spell. Equip a 4/2 sword. You have a random minion in your hand, +4/+2. That's good. I mean, we saw another 4 mana 4/2 weapon earlier, and it was fine. Plus, you get the buff in your hand, which could be amazing. There could even be synergies for it. We'll say a 3.5 on this one. Thoribalor. 4 mana 4/4 legendary elemental. Rush, Death Rattle, go dormant. Cast a fire spell to revive Thoribalor. So, you're sending a 4/4/4 rush out, and then you need a fire spell to wake it back up. I think it's just average. A lot of work to keep it going, but it could be nice. Disruptive Spellbreaker, 5 mana 4/5 epic. At the end of your turn, your opponent discards a spell. Whoa! Hex City. Now this is an interesting design because it's understated, but if you could even get them to discard 1 spell, I'm sure that it's worth it. We'll say a very promising 3.5 for this one. I'm into this card. Silver Fury Stalwart, 6 mana 4/8 taunt rush. Can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. Can't be targeted is a nice little bonus here. 6/4/8, decent stat line. It's got initiative, it's got disruption. Call this another 3.5. Okay. And Warrior overall, I think has some nice stuff. I really like the idea of this. This looks pretty solid. This looks solid. Apparently the draw is actually good. I think this could be nice. This is totally solid. Warrior looks like another strong set. I'll probably put them around 4. And that's it. That's it for the review. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm gonna kind of like skedaddle here, wrap things up, and say I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot of, I mentioned this partway through, but there's a lot of stuff in this expansion that's extremely synergistic and situational. You always hate to see that for Arena because it means that there's going to be at least a dozen dead cards just hanging around in the drafts, which does not make for particularly interesting drafts. But that being said, I like some of the other mechanics and ideas going on in this set. Look forward to playing it. And I'll see you in the Lich March. I'll see you marching. I'll be marching alongside with, I get a 5 out of 5 for this review. That's very generous. I think the ending was pretty distracted and rushed, but okay. Thank you.